All right, what's up, Wrap Shop Talk? So I'm here with Jody Frego with Full Circle Training, and what is the name of the wrap business?
Elevate Design Group.
Elevate Design Group. You're good.
I was not sure. Sorry. I had no idea they had plugged this in.
We're gonna leave that in. That's all good.
It's going to be ringing off the hook.
How many years have you been in business?
Elevate Design Group's been around for 6 years, and Full Circle just launched last year.
Very good. And so 6 years in business. We are in Arizona, correct?
That is correct. We are in
right.
Phoenix.
And what got you into the wrap industry?
In 2001, I was working for Honda Motor Company, and I was tasked with putting aftermarket parts on cars to see if they'd sell faster. So basically what we ended up doing is putting rims and tires, and somebody had a bright idea of putting vinyl stripes on a car to see what it would do. So I was tasked with obviously outfitting the cars and then tracking how long it would take to put on the showroom floor and sub. So I had 4 or 5 dealers that we worked with. I found out that nobody knew how to put stripes on cars. So I was volunteered to go get some vinyl and put some stripes on cars. And so that's where it all started for me. It was back in 2001. I started outfitting cars and putting stripes on them and seeing how quick they sold, and they started selling relatively fast. And so our program started moving quite a bit. And then, of course, I started talking to a lot of sign guys because I'm now trying to learn about how to do this and move it forward at a bigger scale. And it just slowly, one thing led to another, and we started doing that. And then I met a gentleman that had a sign wrap company and started talking to him more and more. And then that's where we started looking into some different ventures. And I don't know if you've heard of the Bad Wrap photographic template system.
Yeah.
So I co-created that back in 2006.
Really?
So I photographed 437 old cars and hand measured them, and then we turned them into templates. And we did it for a few different reasons. We were using it at the dealership level, and we were also using it for the wrap side of it. And then it was like, hey, let's take this to market.
Right.
And so about late 2006, we finally had our first collection put together, and we went out to market with it, and we got an offer from Frank Fellers to purchase the company. And so he purchased the company, and we went there to finish. I went there to finish basically putting the rest of the research and development together on the product. And then, of course, Fellers Certified started, and I was already messing with install, so I started training installers in late 2006, and then we just started moving from there. We built the 3M program in 2009. 3M hired me to do that, and then did a lot of consulting after that, and then decided it was time to settle down. And so opened up a shop so I didn't have to travel anymore and do the corporate thing, and kind of had my own time, I guess, is what you could say.
Oh, so you basically had a massive corporate background prior, and this is like your fun time.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I mean, it was crazy. It was a corporation. I did a lot of construction when I was 17, then I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. So then went to the corporate world, and it was like, okay, this is a little bit better. And then it evolved into, coming into this industry. And then, of course, working for distribution, then working for 3M manufacturing to build out that program, seeing how one of the largest manufacturers, Lowen, we built the first training center in Hutchinson, Kansas at Lowen Corporation. So seeing how they operated as a massive, manufacturing house, which is completely impressive. I mean, their facility is second to none. And then also getting back into consulting with the smaller businesses and going that direction just to see what the pitfalls were, where it was going, what it's doing. And then, consulting takes traveling, right? I had to go to one client, next client. So I got out of that because I wanted to be home more, had younger kids, wanted to be around for them. And so we opened up shop and started getting it going. And then I loved training so much and enjoyed it that I wanted to get back into it a lot more. So here we are with Full Circle Wrap Training and 3M Authorized Training Center, where we're getting it built up and getting it ready to go. So
it looks really good. As you can see in the background, we got computer and screens, and every wall is wrapped. And basically, this is the room that you guys handle all of your design training?
That's correct. Yeah, all of our design classes come in here. We've got a windows and walls design class, a vehicle wrap class. We've got an advanced vehicle wrap class, basically for design only. We focus on Photoshop and Illustrator. When we say design class, We can't teach somebody that's not creative how to be a designer. So what we do is we teach everybody the fundamentals of the programs on how to be efficient.
Right.
And so basically the biggest thing for us is to show tandem use of both programs, how to set up the workflow properly and how to be efficient to get approvals faster.
Okay.
And so we put a lot on creative briefs.
Right.
The designer has to ask the right questions, draw the right information in order to be able to understand the needs of the client, to be able to get it. And the more that they understand what they need to ask and how they need to ask it, the more the proof is going to be on point the first time out, which means less revisions.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's what we're really about: program efficiency and setting up, structuring, and then of course right information in, and then getting faster approvals out.
I think that's massive because most designers are not structured. They're creative people.
Correct.
And then it becomes frustrating for them because they don't understand why they're experiencing this frustration. But really what it is there is a actual structure that can be carried out. Certain, whether it's sending out a survey to the customer for them to fill out or just asking the questions yourself. But most designers don't like even talking to people most of the time.
Right.
I actually made a joke when I came into your shop. We saw the designer and his light is off, headphones are on, and I was like, pretty much like, give me a room, turn off the light, and leave me alone.
That's it. They don't want to talk to somebody until they don't have the information that they need, and then they want to talk to everybody, right? Because they're frustrated. So they're like, "What am I doing? How am I supposed to do this?" And all of a sudden they start asking all these questions for what they need. And so what we try and do is we try and get ahead of that, to where it's, if you're set up where the salespeople are asking all the questions, they have to ask the right questions and document it properly, right? Or allow the designer to sit in and listen to the conversation so they can take the notes that they need, or just run the meeting, ask the questions. Whatever it is, that information has to get to that department in order to be successful.
Yeah, what happens is there's a breakdown between the salesperson or the administration person and the designer. They don't feel the same friction that the designer feels.
Right.
And then the designer has to articulate it in a way for them to understand that that's a problem for them, and they don't understand it. And then nobody notices that this problem happens over and over and over again to actually make a list of the questions to ask.
Right.
And it becomes a compounding problem. And then now you have a designer who leaves you because he hates his job.
Frustrated every day.
Yep.
Yeah, comes in and is completely frustrated, right? So yeah, that's exactly right.
Yep. So fantastic. And I like to tell people, just to end that, is that anytime you feel friction, that's basically a clue of what you need to solve next, basically. And it's like, I feel tension here. You should ask the question, why do I feel tension here? Okay, cool. What can I do to make sure that tension doesn't happen again? Okay, and then you audit and test whether that actually works. And it's like, okay, there's less tension here now. What did I do that worked? How can I make that bigger?
Exactly. How do we reduplicate that process, right? I mean, we test waters on how to change it. Like you said, once you feel that tension's not there, okay, this is the process. How to reduplicate it, make sure it's right.
Awesome. Well, I want to dive in, since, you have a really cool perspective because you came from corporate. Like, that's one thing that I've always said has been a disadvantage for, let's say, me. I started business at 23. I worked at Home Depot and that was it. Like, from there, I went and worked at a small business doing granite countertops. Like, I've always worked for a non-structured entity, basically. I got lucky that my mentor was heavily structured, but it took me years to understand or like wrap my brain around it. But, day one starting a wrap business, what did that look for you guys?
For me, it was a little bit different because I had been in the realm of distribution and everything. And so we had multiple clients during wrap training that we had been able to help walk through a lot of the frustrations. So for me, when I come in to set up, I had already talked to and heard a lot of the problems and frustrations. So for me, it was, okay, how do we build the processes to avoid all the pitfalls, right? The most common pitfalls that we run into with it is usually information. How do we transfer information from each department to successfully say exactly what the project does, what it needs, and to have it produced without having the prior person involved in it? So it's all about maintaining the information and building a process for your shop that is going to work, where people don't have to tell everybody else again and again and again on what's going on with it. and you don't have somebody that's always asking what's going on with it, right? So if you've got an installer that comes up and goes, hey, what are we doing? Your process failed to move the information where it needed to be. If you have a salesperson that goes, oh, I forgot this, there's a problem there because the salesperson should have already had that in there. And if you have a designer that goes, I have no idea what I'm doing, then it goes right back to the information's not going across, right? So for us, it was to build a process, maintain the structure of that process for every single client. And we failed. I mean, flat out. Like it started to work, things were going well, then you start to grow, and then all of a sudden the process wasn't meant for growth, and now all of a sudden we're back to, oh, I thought I told you, and so it's like, oh, great. Okay. So, as each step of the business went, we found that we had to change our process. There's two errors in any type of business or shop. There's a human error and there's a process error. And basically, if there's a human error, you can rewrite the process to fix that human error. If there's a process error, you can rewrite the process to eliminate that process error. So really, if you start looking at what's going on in the frustrations, is it a human error or a process error? And you can rewrite both to fix that issue. And it may take 2 or 3 times because it's never perfect, but it's always a work in progress. But you have to have a structured process to start.
Do you feel that because it's always a work in progress, that's why so many people avoid it?
I think people become complacent and lazy because it's hard to stick to your guns. It's just like anything else. January 1st comes around and everybody goes, I'm getting in shape this year and I'm going to the gym. And what do we know about that? We know that a section of people go to the gym for a short period of time and then disappear, right? Peoples are creatures of habit. And in order to build good, healthy habits, it's something that you have to have set and reproduced for 60 to 90 days. I was lucky enough to have a lot of people in my life that I could talk to and go to that would allow me to be like, no, you have to stay with the process, right? And so for anybody that's starting out, find somebody that owns a business, is already in the wrap business that you can talk to so they can re-encourage you that you're doing the right thing and going down the right road. That was really big for us to continue that process because you do want to shortcut it because it's easy to shortcut it. It really is. It's much easier if I just tell you what the job's about than me spend 20 minutes putting it in the system, writing it up. I can just tell you in 2 minutes and then I've got it off my chest. I don't have to worry about it anymore. It's right. It's really simple. Well, it's simple because you're going to tell the designer that, but then who's going to tell the production person? Who's going to tell the installer? And little jotted notes aren't all the information, right? So it just goes back to you have to have a good process to have all that information flow. And then, of course, you got to have great customer service. Yeah, good quality product because you can have all the information you want, but if you don't give good customer service and a quality product, then it's going to be very difficult to hold on to your clients.
Yeah, I remember John Deaver was my first coach after I bought my mentor out. And I remember talking about my Trello at the time. And I was like, yeah, he goes, let's screen share real fast. Let's see what data you're capturing. It was like name, phone number, email, job description. Then he's like, yeah, let me just share you mine. And like gave it to me. And it was like 5x the information on the front end that I was used to gathering. And I was like, there's no way. But the more we got used to onboarding a customer instead of looking at it as a selling the customer, onboarding that client because you're going to do business with them forever. That's if you look at it like that, I'm doing all this one time. I'm going to do business with them a lot more. And then you gather that data. Then every time, like if you spent 30 minutes on the front end doing that and you didn't have to answer 7 questions, that is the only way that you're actually going to be able to remove yourself from the business at all and allow people to also be their own being and making decisions for themselves based on the data that they see rather than asking you for the answer.
Right.
Because you're training them to ask you that question.
Right. Right. You're training yourself to have multiple questions, right? Or you're setting up the process to have yourself involved with multiple questions. And I agree 100% onboard a customer, right? Because I mean, we pick and choose who we do business with. And if we choose to do business with them and we educate them on how we do business and they fit inside our box, then we need all the information that we can gather and get, so that way we don't have to go back. The salesperson doesn't have to make extra calls. The salesperson sells it, puts all the information in there, and the salesperson is on to the next sale. Why that information is now being pushed through the rest of the system and gone through.
Right. Well, you talked about customer success a little bit. Being that you're picking and choosing your customers, if that's the case, then obviously you're not doing business with everybody. So you want to keep that person. So what are some things that you guys do for customer success that you guys have seen a lot of good success with, as far as like making sure that you're doing, repeat business the next year? Because that's the most effective way to grow. It's like one thing you can do is market and acquire more business over and over and over. But if you can have one account bring you 10 vehicles a year, and then you bring 10 accounts on like that, where that's now 100 vehicles a year. In simple math, that's $500,000 worth of business. And that's also more than a lot of shops are doing. And then you're talking about 10 customers.
Right.
Like, so when you start breaking numbers down simply like that shows you what the impact of one account can be. And I've always said one account can change your whole business.
Absolutely.
So what are you guys doing to ensure that customer success from top to bottom?
Yeah. I mean, literally what we're doing, and you're right, fleet business is where it's at, right? I've had fleets that come in and started with 1 truck and go to 20. I've had other customers come in that had 10 or now at 78. So every single time we take a fleet customer, we onboard them, and we're doing a fleet, or they have multiple units. Basically, one of the biggest things that we do is monthly, we'll go through the fleet and walk through the fleet.
Really?
If there's damage graphics, somebody got in an accident, whatever it is, we mark the unit number, we take a picture of it, what it is, and basically we will bring it up. If there's a warranty issue, that's the first thing that we pick out. And that's the first thing that's on an email that goes out is, hey, we walk the fleet, we notice unit 218 has some issues, it's under warranty, please let us know when we can schedule it. Because that is us taking the customer service and showing them that we're a partner with them, that we want them to look the best, not just when they bring us a vehicle and drop it off and it goes out our door. We want to make sure that it stays that way, and that we are going to take accountability if something's not right. And so one of the first things we do is go through and see if there's any warranty issues. We have VINs collected. We have install dates. We know exactly when we do it. We give a 1-year warranty on all of our labor, and then we have a manufacturer's warranty that goes on the film, right? And so if we look at it and we already know, like, yeah, the installer didn't post it, channel popped, whatever the case is, that's our first email is, hey, this unit has an issue. It is under warranty. Please let us know when we can schedule it. Besides that, we walk through the fleet. Hey, this unit's getting older. We're noticing this. We do not ever tell them it has to be done. We just give them a health update of their fleet and graphics, and then allow them to make the decision that works with their budget on what needs to happen. So we're kind of like a built-in salesperson for each of our fleets, because the fleet manager doesn't have to go run around and look at his things. His plate is full. He's worried about cars that are broke down. He's worried about flat tires, batteries are bad. Did they have everything they need? Like, he's got his own stresses. So when you can partner with that fleet manager and they know that you're not out to dig in their pockets, literally you become a part of the team.
Yeah, you're actually the opposite, especially if you call yourself out like that. So the thing about repeat business is it's everybody wants that account too.
100%.
So every day somebody is coming to take your client.
Yes.
And what you're doing, but I mean, because I don't walk fleets, that's a really good idea.
You should be.
Especially for a couple of my accounts.
100%.
And basically you walking that fleet and having the accountability to say, I noticed this thing, we did that, let me fix it for you. I care.
That's it.
And by the way, I walked it and I wasn't charging you for it.
That's right.
And so you're doing that on your own timeline. Your value proposition of what it actually costs to leave your business is so great, because it's like, dude, is that other guy going to walk my fleet?
Right.
Especially the like you said, most people, fleet managers are busy as a hell. They got problems all day. They are literally the firefighter. So if you can put one fire out for them to where he's like, technically that's my job description, but he's doing it for me.
Right.
I've got an assistant.
Well, that's it. It negates price,
Yeah.
because when somebody comes in lower,
Don't matter.
It doesn't matter because the service that they're getting based on the price that we have, I'm not going to get beat by somebody going lower because they don't know the extra steps that I'm taking to ensure the relationship. And that relationship is critical. And that a relationship, yes, it costs money to have that relationship because yes, it has to pull a member out of the office. We have to walk through it. But also at the end of the day, when I look at it, we get so much extra business out of it because they go, oh, hey, we didn't know that unit was coming to its end. So why don't we go ahead and schedule it and get it done? Perfect. I'll get it on the schedule. I'll handle it from there. We're good to go. And that's basically it.
In the event it was damaged, I didn't even know it was damaged. Let me get it fixed because I care how my image is. Therefore, now you just generated revenue that paid for your trip to go out there too.
100%.
So it's both. Obviously, if you start to see patterns again, back to the friction thing, man, we had like 5 warranties. Who's installing it? Why is this happening? Because how many more other? It's actually telling you the problem that you already have that you're basically closing your eyes to.
Absolutely, yeah. Do you have an installer issue? Or did we have a material problem? If we go back and look at those projects and we look at the lot numbers, because we track lot numbers on every vehicle, are 3 of those failures with the same lot number of material? If it is, then I may just question that, hey, we've got a material issue. So then I'm going to go to the distributor and say, hey, here's a lot number, here's this, here's what we're seeing. And then I'm going to have them double check with the manufacturer to see if it comes back, yes, there is, then I'm getting recouped my money. I'm an MCS shop. So basically I get my labor and materials covered.
Wow.
So it's advantageous to we're human. We're going to have problems, right? We're going to have issues. So it's like, step up and say, hey, look, I messed up. Don't try to hide it. Don't try and just turn your eye to it. Like, just step up and go, yep, that's on us. I apologize. We will absolutely fix it right now. It strengthens the relationship. And again, if they look good, they're gaining more business. If they're gaining more business, they're buying more units. We're getting more business in the turn. So that's kind of how we handle our bigger fleets. Obviously, if you have 2 vehicles, they're on the road every single day, I can't necessarily inspect them. But the bigger customers, usually there's usually a day a week that they'll have sales meetings, they'll have installation meetings where majority of those vehicles are there that you can run through and double check them just to make sure everything's good and solid.
Well, that's my tip for today. Because they're right next to my shop too, so there's no excuse.
No excuse.
Yeah, I mean, but also thinking, okay, we're talking about customers. Says if that client feels that good, and they're that like hardcore secure about what you guys are offering them, if you ask that customer for 2 or 3 referrals, they are only dealing with people that are like them.
100%. We operate a lot on word of mouth and referrals. I mean, I would say 80% or more of our business is word of mouth and referrals.
Yeah. Do you guys have that built into like your sales process where do you physically ask the referral or do you just rely on the customer to do the referral naturally?
It depends on the situation. If we know there's a connection on a fleet that we have been keeping our eye on trying to get into and haven't been successful, then we'll ask for a referral. Other than that, if we don't know that there's a connection there, we're hoping that we're doing our job so well that they share the information, and that usually is what helps. But yes, both ways. I've asked for referrals because I knew that it would be a door opening to get there, and then I've also not asked for referrals and gotten referrals.
Okay. Well, being that it's really cool. I'm actually going to go into some things that'll be advantageous for everybody. So you come from the solution side of corporate. The cool thing about corporate is there's bad sides of corporate. The really good things are the structure and the awareness. What do you feel is the number one pitfall for hiring staff in the small business sector, especially vehicle wraps? Because like everybody, number one question that we get asked all the time in Wrap Shop Talk is, how do I hire X?
Right.
How do I hire, like, how do I attract good people? How do I attract installers? Like, okay, cool. Maybe the person wants to go after growth, but they're terrified of going after growth because they know the mountain of, I need an installer, I need a print guy, I needed this. And I'm in this, whatever story you tell yourself as to why you can't find that person. Like, what are some of the things that you see there?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. If you want to grow the business, you got to have people, period. Like there's no way one person's ever going to be able to do it all. You're never going to get to where you want to go as far as growth goes, you have to have a team and you have to build a good team. And really for us, the way that we do it is we build culture. And when I interview somebody, the first interview is really about, I want them to come see the place and make the decision on whether they want to work here. And I want to be able to talk to them to see if it's something that, do they fit? Do they have the manners? Do they have the demeanor? Do they have the proper speaking articulation that kind of checks off some boxes that fits in our business culture? So a lot of the first interviews I do, I don't even talk about business. I don't get into business. I ask about your family. I ask about personal things. How did you get it here? What, that type of deal, because I want to see how they act and feel, because a lot of times we don't get the real person in an interview, right? Because they're there for a job. They're going to be putting up a little bit of guard and facade because they're trying to get employment. So I try to suppress that down. And at the end of that first interview, it's, do you see this as a place that you could work and thrive?
Mm-hmm.
And for them, when they respond to that answer to me, tells me a ton. Because depending on how they answer that is going to tell me whether it's true or whether it's, I'm just trying to get a job because I need to make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to get a job to make money may not necessarily fit into what we're after. Second interviews is going to be, I need somebody that is skilled, but I don't need somebody that is skilled beyond years, right? I need somebody that's going to fit in my culture, somebody that's going to be teachable, and somebody that may not know everything and that I can teach them the way that I want them to teach them. It's very easy for one bad apple to upset the apple cart. And so they may be the most perfect employee as far as production wise. They may be able to wrap 30 cars a day, but they don't get along with anybody. They fight with everybody. And so it's, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, am I going to upset my whole balance of my shop that is harmonious and moves in one direction and help each other to have one person that, sure, they're very well skilled, they do a lot. And the answer for me is no. I'm looking for that person that's harmonious, that is going to work as a team and grow and continue to grow. And if somebody new gets brought on, they're going to help them grow. I'm not looking for somebody that's the king of the mountain, that I know everything, stand out of my way, because that's usually where we don't see growth.
Yeah. I've always, the visual metaphor I've always had would be like your boiler room, like Wolf on Wall Street, or like any kind of sales type movie where like the lead number one guy walks in and everyone's like, oh, this guy, right? He's like the producer, but everybody else hates him. But if you just do the math though on like the rest of the team, he might be the top producer, but when you put everybody together, like they still put more output. And plus, who wants to come to business and not have fun? Like I've been in your shop now for a couple hours and like everybody seems to be pretty well gelled together. I actually joked with your lead guy that your shop feels a lot like mine, where I tell my team we share a collective 3 brain cells. Like they're just having fun.
Right.
And we get it done, but we might be a little off.
100%. That's what it's about. It's about it. Look, we're usually at our businesses more than we are with our families. And I tell all my employees, if you ever have a day where you get out of bed and you go, I don't want to go to work today, and you put your head down, you need to just come in and we need to just have a talk, because something's happening, whether it's on the personal side, business side, whatever it is. I'm big on culture and families first. Doctor's appointments are first. Our health and our families are something that are only here for a limited amount of time. This business can be here for the next 50 years. The next rap is going to show up, and the next rap is going to show up, and the next rap is going to show up. But our health isn't. So if one of my employees needs a doctor appointment, I don't care if it's 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, 10 in the morning, in the middle of the afternoon, they need to go to the doctor and be excused to go take care of that. If there's a family issue going on, that employee needs to take care of that family issue and make sure it's handled properly. And I'll pay for them to make sure that that's taken care of properly. Now, I'm not going to allow somebody to stay home for 2 weeks to take care of a family issue, and all of my staff completely knows what it is and how we do it. But that is part of a culture that this business is is not a business without the team.
Yeah.
And you have to take care of the team, and you have to take care of your health, mental, physical, and family.
Yeah. Well, a part that might get missed on that, so I'm gonna bring it up, is the only way that you can do that is if you actually charge accordingly too.
That's it. 100%.
If you're lower end of the pack and your business is not making money, then you can't be a good boss or employer. It's actually your duty to charge appropriately, because you can't actually provide the ability to have a place to even go to a doctor's appointment, because you're in such survival mode that, no, we have to get this job out. I have to pay payroll. I have to do this. The only way that you can actually kind of retract back, I don't know a good word for this, but the only way you can like lean back and feel a lot more comfortable of, okay, I don't need that job, is if you have a surplus of money flowing, cash flow. And so, do you see that being a big problem as you go into these shops that you kind of go into, where people just don't understand their numbers and their businesses, and they're charging way too little, or they're like, we were talking about Chrome deletes and how you ran the numbers on what it actually cost you to run a Chrome delete and what you would have to charge. And that doesn't make sense for the customer.
But
It doesn't.
no,
It's better to just buy the trim in black.
that's it. Yeah. Go buy a $300 grill and put it on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we see a lot that their pricing structures, they don't understand how to set proper pricing structures or profit margins. We see it a lot in the business where you ask them, what does it cost to manufacture a square foot of vinyl? And they'll give me the cost of the material and the cost of the ink, but they don't take anything else into account, right? So I think there's a big part for new businesses that are getting going that need to understand what fixed expenses are and how that plays a role in your pricing, and not just with fixed expenses, your cost of goods, and then your profit margin to put together pricing. Because everybody asks me, well, what's the average square foot pricing in Phoenix?
How'd you arrive there?
And I'm like, I don't know and I don't care. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, I don't base my pricing based on what everybody else is charging. And they're like, well, what if you're 10 times higher? Well, I'm 10 times higher. It is what it is. It's based on my profit number that I need to make. So I run my numbers and I base my costs off of the profit that I want to make.
Yeah.
And granted, when you do that, you still want to know what is going on inside your area, because you don't want to leave money on the table. But at the same time, when you do that, you're very comfortable when you have jobs.
Yeah.
You know that you're making the proper profit amount. You know that you're turning the right dollar amount, and you can really sleep a little easier at night, because I'm not stressed about I have to have these 20 jobs done tomorrow, because my cash flow is operating on a 30-day, right? So if I've got net 30 clients and I've got cash pay clients that pick up, all of my financials were 30 days ago, and I'm already working 30 days ahead of where I'm going to be at. So hopefully we can start teaching the new shops to work on that ahead cash flow, and not, I just finished this job and I'll get paid in 30 days, right?
Like this.
Exactly. So pricing is a huge one. I get a lot of questions about it, and everybody's pricing is going to be different, and it's going to be absolutely different, and it's all going to be based on their cost of goods.
And that's all that should matter.
That's it. That's it.
And so the response is, it doesn't matter what everybody else is charging, because the feedback is, did I win the customer, yes or no? That's the feedback that you should care about. If I'm winning 100 of the clients out of 100, I'm too low.
100%.
Because now I'm also dealing with trash clients that I don't want to work with, because I'm getting everybody. There's no prestige, there's no exclusivity, there's no nothing. And then as you're doing it and you notice, man, we've won no bids.
Yeah.
You can say,
Too high.
it's feedback. Why? I'm too high. Okay. But also, you don't need to ask your competitors what their price is. Just ask the customer, hey, why did you not pick me? That's it. Just ask the hard question. Why didn't you pick me? Oh, well, Johnny's play other place. That doesn't mean that you need to drop your prices yet. Okay, they were $2,000. Cool. Keep putting out your thing. hey, customer, why didn't you pick me? So-and-so is 2,000. Okay, I'm noticing that there's an average of what the market will bear because you're in scarce brain whenever you're doing it based on what everybody else is doing.
Yes.
And whereas if you just do it on business fundamentals, nobody cares that Rolex charges what they charge for their exclusive watches. And most people don't realize that there's exclusivity above the exclusivity where it's like, I can't even buy that one because like Ferrari, I didn't buy the 17 other models first to even get that one.
Right.
Like there's a customer for everybody. And that's why you have to have a vision far enough out to understand what type of business am I? Am I going to be a good boss? You're not going to be a good boss being the bottom of the barrel, period. I don't care how nice you are. You're too stressed to be a good boss.
That's right.
So you have to define that vision of what you really want. And that's what my mentor would always tell me. And it's hard, it's the hardest question I've ever had to answer was, what do you want and how are you going to get there? 100%. That's the hardest question by far I've ever tried to answer. And then how much do you want to make? Because he did tell me like there's a cost. I sacrificed a lot to get where I'm at. I'm happy though. That made me happy. That might not make you happy. So to create a definition of the life that you want and reverse engineer it from there. And then from there, go after it and don't care about what everybody else, that's their lives.
That's right.
That's why I don't care about the competition or how I arrived at $14 or $10 a square foot. The numbers are relevant. Understand the fundamental portion of it. And we do have a calculator if you need that.
Nice.
So, but that's our biggest viewed video.
Yeah.
Is we've generated a Excel spreadsheet where you can plug in your cost of goods sold, your print time, what's your this, and then
I watched
done.
it, got it.
Yeah.
Watched it, I mean, I don't care how long you've been in business, you should always be looking at those different ways and the way that people are doing different things and trying to see if it relates to your business. And like I said, I mean, that's it. Like it's, you got to constantly continue to, evolve and build the business and make sure that what's going on with it. Because I mean, if you stop trying to learn, you're going to stop growth. Absolutely. And that's the biggest part, is to be open-minded. The way that everything works now may not work the same way in 3 to 5 years. And I think everybody that's adapted, we've seen a lot of companies across the country adapt, grow. And again, they did exactly what you said. Where do you want to be and how do you want to do it? They reverse engineer it and they go after it.
Yeah. So I want to talk about what we were talking about before we started, about let's talk about standardization. Let's talk about standardization and because it's cool because you get to see a lot of shops. And like you said, you even work with very large businesses, franchises even, and you still see the same consecutive human error of, I must put my mark on this thing because I can't do this because of some reason that is a limited belief in my mind.
100%. I could give you my operating standard manual right now that says this is exactly how I run my shop. And it gives you everything. Sales all the way out, install, marketing, everything, right? And what we're seeing is that when you hand the book off, majority of the people want to start modifying it and putting their piece into it instead of really taking and trying to use it and be like, okay, this works. Now, again, you can always modify it, but what we're seeing is that there's a standardization that's given to certain shops out there, and then they operate outside of it completely. And not just that, certain shops within one particular operating book, I don't want to name out the franchise, but one operating book, and all of a sudden you have 7 different people operating 7 different ways at the same table. And it's puzzling to me because standardization can help dramatically, right? I mean, if we have a process, if we put that standardization in, can we tweak it a little bit? Yes, but completely operate outside of it, to me, baffles me because there's hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on this data. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have been spent to put this together to say, hey, we know that if you do X, Y, Z, it's successful and it's a successful pattern. And so for somebody to be like, yeah, I don't need X, it just baffles my mind. So it's one of those things that I would love to see
more of the shops had more of a standardization from ownership, because ownership has its own role, sales has its own role, design, production, install, and I don't know, some companies have deliveries, they'll have a person that delivers the vehicles, moves the vehicles, whatever the case is. But I'd love to see a standardization more for our industry on A, each position, B, communication, because I think we lack a massive amount of communication inside the companies. And a lot of the problems that we see are based on lack of information or lack of communication.
It's all problems.
One of the two, right? I mean, that's pretty much the biggest thing. And I know John Deaver preaches it a ton. Communication, 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 right? He's probably one of the ones that's got multiple videos that like he talks about the biggest killer in the company is lack of communication.
Yeah.
And the most frustrated.
Oh, it's because it becomes a cancer or a cesspool of just energy, basically, that gets mounted up. And that's something that I've worked on. I've actually found that, and we can jump into this because it really goes aligned with it, which is having harder conversations faster.
Yeah.
Because I found that being relentless with that, not emotional with that, but being relentless with, I feel this sensation of I need to speak to Johnny or whoever it is because this thing just doesn't sit well with me. And then we avoid it, like they'll change.
Right.
But if you had that conversation the first time you felt this small feeling, you're not an explosion. But what happened with me over and over and over is I'd be like, they change. And then 2 years later, I'm like, what the heck are you doing? And I'm blowing up at the person in a very emotional manner because I love the people on my team. But I never had the conversation. It's my fault.
Yeah. And I mean, that conversation needs to be had anytime you had that. We were just talking a few minutes ago about, if I don't want to come into work, like you got to come talk to me, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing when we see something that we're like, okay, that doesn't sit well with me and we can't have this. You can't turn your eye to it thinking it's going to change because you have to invoke change. And so having that conversation, really gets into it. And there's been a lot of times that I've put people in place to fail. And I look at it and I go, okay, this person's really good at production. This person's really good at design, but they're not very organized. And they don't really communicate real well. Well, I have them dealing with customers. So number one, they don't communicate very well. And then they don't do that, but I'm getting mad at them because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So when you stop for a minute and you look and you go, oh my gosh, I set that person up for failure because I knew their strong points, but I needed to put somebody there. So I put them there and now they're not thriving and I'm mad at them. So at the end of the day, it was my fault that I put somebody in a space to fail. So I always try to look at any of my personnel employees. I try and find those strong points and put them in. Now, we still want to grow them, so we can still work on with them on communication and everything else, but we can never have that expectation that they're going to be a perfect communicator and going to be a perfect organizational person, because that's not how they're built. Their brain isn't built that way, and it would take that person to really want to change and do a lot of hard work. And let's face the facts, there's points sometimes where people are just wired differently. And I mean, when we talk about that, we talk about personality types, right? And I mean, we hear a lot about people taking personality tests prior to being hired so we understand how to talk to them. But yet in smaller shops, we're like, oh, I need this guy. He's really good. And we put him there and then we yell at him because he's not doing what we want him to do. And it's our fault because they're not wired that way. So sometimes we have to stop and take a look at what we're doing as business owners. Are we putting the right people in for success? Or are we putting them in for failure? And make sure that we're putting them in the position to be successful. Now, if they're lazy, they have the ability, then that's on them.
Yeah.
And that's where the conversation comes in. It's like, hey, look, you did this and you know better, and we need to make sure that doesn't happen again. And every year I sit down with every single one of my employees and basically I ask them, what are your goals for 2025?
Awesome.
Right? Because I want to know what they're striving for. How do I help them get to where they're going? They're helping me.
So how do I help them?
Yep.
If it's they want to learn something new, they want to try something different, then we'll put together a program where they'll be able to take a look to see if that's something they want. I had a production guy that told me, I want to be an installer. I want to be an installer. I want to be an installer. Perfect. No problem. So we started slowly working him into install. 3 weeks later, I get a conversation that says, hey, I really don't like install.
I thought I did.
Right, right. So but it's those communications and it's those types of talking things through, A, with your employees, B, being self-aware of your personnel's strengths and weaknesses and what their long-term goal is to put a team together to be highly successful and continue. My culture is that everybody that's been here has been here over 4.5 years out of a 6-year company. It took us a couple of years to find everybody.
Yeah.
But now that we found them, they don't want to go anywhere. I don't want them to go anywhere. We make sure that we take care of them. We get their regular reviews. We make sure that we set standards in those meetings. In other words, we set goals. What my goal is, what their goal is, we meet in the middle, and that is a wage increasement goal. And basically, if they can reach that goal, then they will maintain it and they will increase their wage. And we set 3 goals a year to try and increase their wages to get them. So it gives them something to reach for.
Well, you have to, because if not, then you're telling them to, hey, go over there and give me that thing. And you weren't very specific. They're like, well, what do I go get you?
Right.
At all. Like, it's like, hey, I would like you to give me coffee. Coffee where?
Yeah.
It has to be black and white. It has to have exactly what the metric is. It needs to be measurable as to what is their rate of perceived growth.
That's it.
All that stuff. That's one of my favorite things is asking people at very beginning, what is it that you want? What do you want to be in 5 years? Like what? And I only focus, like my meetings with people anymore. I don't get on to people. I just ask, does that get you closer to that thing that you told me that you wanted? This action. Because it kind of makes you feel
That's a great one. That's a great one.
That's
great.
It makes you feel really dumb. Like I had a guy, he really wanted this one thing, and his actions 100% contradicted what he told me he wanted. I was like, hey, I'm trying to get you to that thing. Do I care about that thing more than you do? That's the only reason why I'm upset. I want you to have that thing.
Right.
And with these actions, you're not going to get that thing. Like, it's crystal clear. You're not going to. And if you're not forward progress, then what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Is this a environment conducive to your goals? Because now I'm holding you back. And so, like, I'm never making it about me and what I want. Like, me. It's more like, bro, it's right there, and I'm caring about it with you. Like, I'm hooting you on.
Yeah, let's go.
But if they stop, then that's an indicator that if they do, the reason why I like that framework is if somebody doesn't care about their goals, they are not going to care about your business.
That's it. And if you have nothing to pertain to get them to their goals, they're not going to care about your business, right? And so that's where those conversations come in queue. I mean, I've been through the board. I've been all over the board. Performance-based pay, commission, everything else. Right? Like there's just this whole different thing. And don't get me wrong, like there's a lot of companies that make commission-based pay work and performance-based pay work. And for our particular shop, we've never been able to really put it all together to get it to come together. But what I have been able to put together is being able to drive them to where they're trying to achieve. And by doing so, they get rewarded by hitting the marks that we want as a company for them to strive to. And usually they line up together because usually somebody wants to become, I want to become the lead installer. Great. In order to do that, we need to make sure that when you walk in the door, you're getting everything together. You're going to work. We're not walking around. We're not on our phone. We're putting our head down. We're getting projects in and out on timelines. And then, of course, it's down to the little things. Look, your trimming needs some adjustment, right? It's like your corner work needs to be fixed. There's some things that need to be handled. If we can put these 10 things together, here's your next point. And then slowly start just working in that area. And I mean, we
spending 2 hours a week on leading the new guy. Like, because that's a skill that I have to learn as the leader. So now you're teaching them actual skills. Because that's, especially my installers and or any position, but if there's a ceiling to every role, and if you don't make that ceiling crystal clear, then you're just lying to them and they're expecting more because of tenure. but more is based on value proposition and output and leverage.
Right.
So you have to teach them how to be more than an installer. I need you to be an install leader to where you are now multiplying your effort to 3 to 4 under installers, and then you're growing them. And then you're being incentivized based on, obviously there's so many different structures, but like ours is you might get an override per person's output. So now you're taking away from your, like an immediate drawback is you're taking away from your output because you're slowing down. But now when you go on vacation, you got 5 people working under you and you're getting X percentile override on each person. Now you're making money. I'm teaching you how to make money without working.
Right.
And so, but yeah, I mean, all that's huge. But man, this was awesome. I'm sure you and I could probably talk all day.
Oh, absolutely.
And we've been talking for 2 hours before we even turn on the camera. But I think that was a good conversation. I think that'll be beneficial to a lot of people. And I think, it's really cool hearing your perspective coming from the corporate side. That's something that I don't envy in a way because like my brain doesn't do corporate very well, but I envy it based on the pain that I experienced because I don't know it very well, if that makes sense. And so it took me so long to try to find that hybrid of, I think the best small businesses or best entrepreneurs, the ones who can bring in the systems and structure of a corporate world, but also the care, love, and tenderness of somebody just wants to help people and run a business and provide for themselves and et cetera.
You're exactly right. I mean, you've got to have both sides in that, right? You've got to have that structured, stable process with the tender, loving care part of it. And I mean, that's where you start to see that growth. I would love to see a lot of the owners that are out there that are just doing it day in and day out by themselves to start looking and being like, okay, I can start getting somebody in and start getting it going, because the sooner you can get a company built that stands on its own, that runs without you, the more freedom that you get, right? And I mean, we still love this industry. We still do this industry. But I love teaching, and I can't run that company and also do teachings. And so having that set up with the proper processes, the proper people, now also allows me to do other things that I really, really love. And so, I mean, if anybody has a passion to do other things, get your business in order, get your processes in place, get your right people in your right culture, and go chase your dream.
Absolutely. Where can people find you in your businesses?
Yeah, so Full Circle Wrap Training, it's fcwtraining.com. We're a 3M authorized training center. We're just finishing getting built out, doing all the installation training center stations. So we won't be fully up and operational for that probably till the middle of the year. But design classes, we've got windows walls design class. We've got a vehicle wrap design class 101 and 201. So if you're looking to up your game and your design skills, we'd love to have you. Check out the website. It's got the full schedule on there.
Awesome. Well, man, it was a pleasure.
Hey, thank you very much for coming by.
Yes, sir.